Good evening and welcome to the July 1st meeting of the governing body. Call this meeting to order. If you will stand as you are able for the invocation from Councilman Miller, give him your attention, and then remain standing after that for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman. An entrance. I like that.
Like that?
I like that.
You're on. I'm gonna keep it real honest here in a second. Good height. No, I'm not worried about nothing. I would like to say that first I appreciate everybody's patience. One of the reasons that I'm about to do what I'm about to do a second ago that I said I was going to do last month is one of the main reasons I'm late. In this past year, I have changed the way that I do things, and it's because of family and community. I had 3 different speeches written down tonight, and the last one just got deleted an hour and a half ago. Because in those moments when I write in previous thoughts, it's not as genuine as in the moment. Because in those previous thoughts, I may want to speak on things that I hear, that I know. And now is not the time to do that. When you're speaking on the things that we speak about today, when you have the public coming to support, look at this packed house here tonight. They care about things that are much bigger than us. They care about things that are important to them. So when I say, I apologize for being a couple minutes late, it is only because I try to hold true to the things I say I will do with the people that I love. And then I will do my invocation with a wig. My 10-year-old now won a bet. So if I have to deal with it, you all do too. But to that 10-year-old and to the kids around schools, that attend schools and community centers that are affected by the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. When we put them first, make sure that we are taking care of the folks that are the most vulnerable in our community, we can get some things done, but we need to make sure that those people that are affected by those decisions know why we make the decisions that we make. And so my son said, I'm not going to come tonight because I want to play with my cousin. I said, how are you going to back out on your part of the deal? You're supposed to be sitting right in there and watch me as I make a clown of myself. But regardless of here or not, I'm going to do my end. I'm going to do what's right. So I hope you guys, everyone in this audience and everyone watching right now, understand that the people up here are not making decisions solely about themselves and their interests. It is about us. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I kind of like that wig.
You like that? It looks pretty good. One time only.
Okay, Madam Clerk, first on the agenda, please call the roll.
All right. Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Councilmembers Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Banks.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Dobler,
Here.
Duncan,
Here.
and Hofer.
Here.
All right, we have 10 present.
Okay, 10 present. Second on the agenda is a recognition. Is the young man here this evening? Okay, good. Well, maybe you can join me up here at the microphone while I read this recognition. No, just let me holler. I think it'll be okay. Okay. On occasion, we get an opportunity to recognize citizens in their accomplishments. And we start at all levels, grade school, high school, college, and in the business world. When they have an accomplishment that we think speaks well of the community that lives here in the city of Topeka, we like to take that opportunity to break up all the seriousness of a governing body with some joy that happens in our city. So this evening, I'd like to be able to recognize that effort with this young man. And this is a certificate of recognition. In recognition of an extraordinary athletic achievement, the city of Topeka proudly honors Adrian Lehman for breaking a long-standing track and field record of Topeka West High School. Your outstanding performance in the 3,200 meter run with a remarkable time of 9:16.98 and the 1,600 millimeter with a time of 4:16.70 has set a new school record, surpassing a milestone that had stood unbroken for 50 years. That's quite an accomplishment. He's unhappy. Adrian had placed fifth in the 5A 3,200 meter and fourth in the 5A 1,600 meter at the K.S.A. State Track and Field Championship. This accomplishment is not only a testament to Adrian's dedication, discipline, and perseverance, but also a moment of pride for Topeka West High School, which has a storied tradition of excellence in athletics. Adrian's achievement has inspired his teammate, energized the school community, and brought well-deserved recognition to the city. Adrian has been offered an athletic scholarship and is committed to Washburn University as part of the cross-country and track and field team. Excellent. On behalf of the city council members and its residents, we commend Adrian Lehman for his historic feat and extend our best wishes for his continued success on and off the track. In witness whereof, I do hereby affix my seal, Michael A. Padilla, Mayor of the City of Topeka. Congratulations.
And Mayor. He was also just named the Capital Journal's Male Athlete of the Year.
Wow. Thank you. You want to get a quick picture? Yep. Let me move this out of the way. Thank you. Thank you. Adrian. Good job. Okay. Move on to agenda item 3, Madam Clerk.
3 is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Travis Gooden to the City of Topeka Board of Electrical Appeals for a term ending July 6, 2027.
Okay, you heard the appointment is read. Is there a motion to approve? Motion. Okay. Motion to approve by Councilman Dobler, second by Councilman Duncan. Are we doing roll call with people still, or,
I think everybody's logged on here, so we'll go ahead and vote.
okay? If we can go
Okay.
ahead and vote then.
Yeah. So Councilmember Kell, what is your vote?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Valdivia, Akla, and Ortiz, can you guys cast your votes?
I cannot.
You
Okay,
better-
so your
you better
vote is,
My vote is yes.
okay. All right, we have 9 yes, the motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Move on to agenda item 4, Madam Clerk.
For his presentations, the first one that we have is for TMTA Metro On Demand, the mod service update.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Bob Nugent, Topeka Metro General Manager, will lead us through this discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak to you about on the mod. I wanted to give you a little background on the mod to start off. Several years ago, of course, we all know we went through quite an ordeal with COVID. As part of the COVID experience, we were looking at our routes, and we commissioned a consultant to look and see what we could do with our routes. The primary focus at the time was really to identify opportunities for us to change and make our service better, to improve the efficiency of service, and also to explore new kind of alternative ways of providing service, things that we hadn't done in this community. One of the things that came out of that study was microtransit. And we knew that microtransit kind of existed. Microtransit is really kind of the modern version of flex routing and stuff, which has been going on since the early 90s. So the only difference in microtransit, it has an app that you can use, very similar to Uber, Lyft, those kind of services. So one of the things we want them to look at is, tell us if microtransit can work in our community. They did, and I guess really what you need to understand up front is the study saw a number of weaknesses in our service. One of them was the Indiana route. We had, at the time, we had COVID, so we had low ridership on like the 29 and the 3 on Saturdays. We had a lot of routes that had low ridership. So, of course, microtransit was one of those, if we're going to replace low ridership, how can we do it? And Indiana was one of those that we thought, well, maybe that's a possibility of doing it. We also, kind of looked for ways that we could provide service in new areas, which the board and I think all of us at the time was saying, well, right now during COVID, we really don't want to look at expanding service. We need to focus on what we can do better in our routes. So to kind of give you an idea of what microtransit is, microtransit really gained its momentum in about 2014, 2015, around there. It really came out of that whole flexible public transit kind of service, which was point deviation. You may have heard some of these terms, point deviation, flex routing, all that stuff. It kind of fits between, if you look at where it fits between public transit, a big bus operating a big street carrying a lot of people, and a private automobile carrying one person for 15 minutes to go to work. So it kind of is between those two things. It is still an on-demand service, which is kind of what our cars are in a garage. It operates in real time, of course, so with an app you could get a trip in 15 minutes or so. Uses the technology to do that. Microtransit operates best in a zone. It's hard to do in a whole city because taxis have the same problem. If you have all the taxis going from one side of town to the other side of town, now you're off balance and you can't really provide the service that you think you can in a short period of time. It's a shared ride service. Everything we do at Topeka Metro is a shared ride service. So you might have to ride with somebody else you don't get. It's not a taxi cab. You can't. It's not Uber where you can get your own individual rides and that kind of stuff. One of the good things about microtransit is it uses smaller vehicles. So, understanding that it uses smaller vehicles and is a little more nimble and can get in and out of areas, we looked at places like the Indiana, where the Indiana north and south between kind of downtown and where it finally makes its push kind of to the west on 37th Street. And so a lot of those neighborhoods down in there, narrow streets, no sidewalks, ditches in their front yard, very hard to walk in and out of. So we said, well, okay, we have the Indiana, which is already not performing well. We have an area where microtransit could work better with smaller vehicles and stuff. Let's see what we can do there. Part of our thinking at the time was, if microtransit works, if we can see a shift between the fixed route to microtransit, maybe the Indiana we could reduce the service on it and kind of reinvent how we're viewing transit. So, we started looking, well, we can do that in kind of the Indiana corridor, Indiana, Adams, California corridor, but what else could we do with it? And one of the suggestions the consultants came up with, which is the previous slide to this one, was we already had a flex zone out in the kind of the southeast portion of town. That flex zone came about because we used to have a fixed route out there and it did not work. So instead of abandoning ridership, we went, well, we really haven't tried flex routing. We put a flex route out there. The flex route lasted for a number of years, but the ridership just kept waning until there was almost nothing left in the ridership at all. So we thought, well, maybe we could take another run at it with an app and microtransit, with that kind of view to it. So then we started saying, okay, if we can do it kind of in that south central and south area, how would we fund it? Now, when we fund things, we don't necessarily say we're going to fund it with this amount of funds. We say it's hours, bus hours, because we know how much our bus hours are. And we just say if we can pull a couple hours of service away from this route or that route, and we could throw it toward this. That's what this slide really shows you, is we discontinued the East Flex Zone, which, we probably only had maybe an hour's worth of service in that area at the time. We discontinued the two additional levels of service that we had supporting the school system, which were called the 10 specials. We removed half-hour service on the Huntoon, and on the 17, a lot of that was driven by lower ridership, not just by COVID, but also by a lot of construction in those corridors. We know there was a lot going on over there, and it changed how people were using the service. So then we said, well, okay, what's our service area going to be? And this kind of shows you the service area. It's bounded on the north side by I-70, on the south side by the Turnpike, on the west side by Topeka, and on the east side by Croco in general. I mean, there's a few variations in that. It's a big zone. It was 7 square miles. We initially started out saying this is going to be 2 zones. We were going to put 1 vehicle in each zone. But before we rolled it out, we thought, well, until the ridership shows itself, let's just make this one big zone. So we do have quite a big zone. These darker blue spots you see in the middle are really, that's areas where we have a common pickup and drop-off location. Think of it like if I was wanting to make a pickup at somebody at the mall, where at the mall, which door, what store, all those kind of things. So if it's somewhere around Walmart, we'd say, we're going to pick you up at that bus stop at Walmart. That's the common location there. So we started creating a service, and so we knew it was going to be real time. We knew it was going to be zone based. It was going to be a shared ride service as we do with everything else. We really were focusing on having it available to somebody within 15 minutes. So after they scheduled a trip, we'd be sitting there in 15 minutes later. It was going to use a vehicle tracking system, GPS, so if you scheduled a trip, you could see where your vehicle was when it was going to be there. You could track it out. We could track the vehicles and manage them internally also. When it came to fares, it was a question we had, and it's still out there today, is we wanted to start with the existing fare structure because we didn't want to run anybody off and say this is a premium service, so we're going to give it a premium rate. We thought, let's see if we can get the ridership there. We put it out at a regular base rate, which was $2 a ride. And so we had that question about whether it was going to be a zone-to-zone, different fares for different zones, whether it was going to be a premium fare or not. We decided to go with the base fare till they started out. All the out of zone, now we have a lift service on top of our fixed route service. That lift service is for those that are certified under American Disabilities Act. Those people that were traveling out of this zone, out of this microtransit zone to another zone, we're still going to have to use lift service because we couldn't take the vehicle out of our zone to take it across town to take somebody there. So those trips were still going to be scheduled under the lift service. The trips, we had 3 ways of scheduling the trips. One was an app, a phone, or you could even do it online. And we wanted to also mirror the hours and the service that we had out on a fixed route, so there'd be no difference in that at all. So, we looked at this as like a 3-year, I don't like to use the word pilot because the feds don't like us to use that word anymore. So I say it's been a 3-year experiment and trying to understand what microtransit is and how it would fit into our toolbox of things that we could do. So, we've been monitoring. This is a trip activity. This is a heat map of where the activity has been from the very beginning of our service till now. You can see that there's 2 red things like right in the center. That's Dillon's and Walmart. That's where most of the activity is. It's where you would expect it. The other place you would expect it is down in that lower left-hand corner down there, and that would be the South Walmart, but it's really not that active down there. So we do have some in the neighborhoods. But as you can see, that east zone with one with a big red circle, there's nothing there. And then in that southernmost portion down there, south of like Kansas and 37th down there, not much there either. So, we have this question of our trip lengths are getting longer. The demand for service was getting higher, which meant we were pushing up against that 15 minutes that we were trying to hope to stay under, and we were having all kinds of alerts to that. So it got to the place where the demand started leveling off and plateauing off. I don't know if part of that was being driven by such a large zone or not. Keep in mind that if we put another vehicle out there, we just doubled our cost of operation because the primary cost of our operation is the operator, right? So, whether you can get 14 miles to a gallon or 7 miles to a gallon doesn't make a whole lot of difference when the primary cost is your operator and your vehicle maintenance. So the next slide really shows what hit us the hardest, and that is our regular fixed route service. We're operating, we pick up quite a few people. This is what we do best, right? Lift service is right now the cost is about $33 a trip, and that's mandated under ADA. So we can't walk away from that. We have to do that. We have to have a complimentary paratransit service to our fixed route. But the mod is operating at about $50+ a trip. That's pretty expensive. That's where the board and all of staff really started having some difficulties in accepting what microtransit was and how to apply it in our system. So we went to the board and raised some of these issues. We really found that we really couldn't replace a high volume, high capacity system with a low capacity system and do it in a cost effective way. I mean, it's just almost impossible. The microtransit, different than fixed route. Fixed route, if you have more passengers on a bus, you've got a bus, you can probably hold them. You can hold up to 35 passengers so on a bus. And if you hit capacity on a microtransit van, now you got to put another van out. Or if you can't run on time, you have to put another vehicle out. It doesn't work on that economies of scale at all. We realize that this works best in very, very low ridership areas and sparsely populated areas, or in areas like I was saying earlier that really have narrow streets, maybe cars parked on both sides and no sidewalks and ditches and things that you're having to navigate and get around. So we accept it as, I think we understand a little bit more about what this tool is. And so the question I think in our minds now is, where's this going to go? The first thing that we decided to do as well, we probably need to make those changes. And at the bottom of the next slide, and it's a term that you keep hearing a lot of people in the industry talking about, is microtransit seems to be more of an elite kind of projection than anything else. That people that are not really using transit, they're used to having that car in their garage. And they're used to having it, if they want to go somewhere, they can just open that door and 5 or 6 steps later, they're in a vehicle and going. And it's the same even with amenities. People do that with amenities. See somebody standing waiting for the bus and they want to have a bench for them and stuff. But if you start asking the people that really use it, they have a different perspective, and that's the next slide that we go to. What we found in our user preferences, the dark blue is those that are non-captive. That's the people that have a car, have a $300,000 house or whatever. They're probably not going to ride public transit. The ones in the light blue are the captive. That's the ones that are basically need us for service. That's the ones that we are so woven into their daily lives and their life that they need us out there. It really shows what those preferences are. Expanded hours is they want it to go longer. They want the service to increase frequency. They want it more frequent. So, our automobile, we can go to it any time, get in it and go somewhere. If you're wanting to ride a bus and you have to wait a half hour, an hour for it, that's not as easy to use as our car, right? So they want that increased frequency. If you look at the fourth bar over, the improvement of, and that's misspelled, improve accessibility, that is microtransit. It's all about accessibility, and you can see where it rates with the people that use and are not using our service. So microtransit doesn't really rate very high, but is it valuable to us? Yeah, I think it is. I think we have to find a way of using it. We know now that there are certain routes that drop off on weekends. Can we replace some of that on weekends? And how that would affect the system. So anyway, the board here last week or so voted to do 3 things. We started out with a 7 square mile service area. They reduced it down to 4, and that's pretty much where you saw all that activity in the heat map, right? The one place that if you didn't notice is at 29th and Croco, we had activity still at 29th and Croco. So we are going to, they voted to make that a premium fare. Keep in mind that this is really a premium service, right? So they opted to do a premium fare, which is $15, which is the same premium fare we've had on our Lyft service for out of our service area. So we're consistent with that. And then they voted to increase the base fare from $2 to $6. And that's starting to eat away at some of the cost of the operation. It reduces some of the miles of our operation and gives us more of an opportunity to provide those trips in those really hot areas, in the Californias and Adams and Indiana areas that are the majority of our trips. So the next slide really shows what our service area is now, and that arrow kind of shows the 29th and Croco area, which we will continue to provide that service at that additional premium fare. So anyway, that's the 3 things that the board has voted on. I'm not going to stand for questions. I'll sit for questions. So feel free. If I can't answer it, I've got board members and others behind me that could probably help. So.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Questions from the council? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to follow it all. So we've reduced the service area and tripled the fee?
Yep. Yeah, the fare went from $2 to $6.
And that's like if I needed to go someplace and get back home, is that 1 fare or 2 fares?
2 fares would be $12.
How are people going to do that? I mean,
Well, keep in mind that where this service operates, if you look at where this service operates now, we have service up and down California. Those red dots that you saw on the right side in the heat map, they're covered by the California. In the Indiana corridor, same way. The 37th corridor, same way. We have fixed route service all over the place out there. Some of the highest level of fixed route service we have.
Okay.
This is really an additional service on top of that.
okay, I was thinking that you were doing that with your fixed route service.
No, no,
That
no.
this was overall what was happening.
No, this, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't clear on that, but it's.
Thank you.
It's $6 for the microtransit for the mod service. Our
Okay.
regular service has not changed the fare. And I will say that we've heard that even from the public. It's like, you're going to $6? No.
Just
That's
wanted to make
mod we've been talking about. Right?
Okay.
So-
Thank you, thank you.
Councilman Miller?
Oh, Mayor, I took that back because she
Okay.
asked the question
All right.
kind of how I was going to ask.
Further questions? You know, I think it's interesting, the slides that you showed about what the preferences are on some of those. It's a little different than I would have expected, but
It is quite awakening when you see, and the way we did that survey to ask those that are not using it and those that are using it, you can really see that difference between how people view transit, you know, and how they do it. And I will say that the organization in recent years has really started to try to focus on those that are using the service and starting to pull back from trying to convince people to use our service that probably will never use our service. And I think that's a mistake. And I would rather, I think the board is of the same mind, that we would rather put out a higher level of service and get people to weave us even more into their life than they already do. So.
thank you. No further questions, I guess.
All
Thank you
right.
very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
We have a second presentation, Madam Clerk.
Second one is the mid-year financial report.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Division Director of Budget and Finance, will lead us through this item.
Thanks, City Manager. Good evening, governing body. So tonight we thought it would be a good idea to kind of go through where we stand mid-year financially in the general fund, as well as some other funds before we actually enter the budget process for 2026. So some of the areas we'll discuss tonight are revenues and expenses within the general fund, kind of where we're tracking out with the vacancy credit, since we typically every year set a vacancy credit within the general fund. Go over some other funds and then answer any questions there may be. So this is the revenue side of our income statement. So the main thing to take away on this slide is we're projecting at this point in the year in our general fund to generate about $119 million. Now, the main revenue sources within the general fund are obviously property taxes, motor vehicle taxes, sales tax, and franchise fees. Now, going through each one of those is that our property taxes, we received about 98% of our collections at this point in the year. The main two disbursements are in January and in June, and then we get the last payments trickling in the fall. At this point in the year for sales tax, we have 4 of 12 months in. There's a 2-month lag. We're 2.25% higher through 4 months this year compared to last year. And then for franchise fees, we are projected to beat budget. Collections for those franchise fees through Kansas Gas and Evergy were higher for the first 3 months of this year, probably because of the winter storm events, but for the last 3 months, they've been about flat compared to last year. So we're going to beat budget, but they are cooling off to where they are trending to where they were last year. And then that's probably about 80% of our revenue right there. But those are the material revenue information items that we need to keep in mind. Now, one thing I will note is in the 2025 budget, that miscellaneous column, that the reason that is $10 million behind budget is because that was assuming a $10.6 million transfer from our unassigned reserve fund into the general fund to make us whole for 2025. So that does look a little odd, but that transfer would have to come before the governing body before a vote. That's the way the fund works. So that's why that kind of looks a little odd. But going into the expense side. So obviously in a service organization, the general fund, our main departments out of the general fund are police, fire, and public works, with police and fire being about 70% of the general fund. Now, majority of our expenses are related to personnel. As you can see, even with the vacancy credit, with our current head count today, we'd be projected to be under budget on personnel. Now, if we added head count in the form of a fall recruit class for police and fire, we'd be over budget on that line item, just as a note. Some of the other items, that contractual line items, that's where our insurance was paid out of, any charges that go into other funds such as fleet, facilities, and IT. And then that's where our prisoner care charges, that's kind of the same story as last year, where we budgeted a little better than compared to 2024, but those bills are coming in quite high. And then also that's where our liquor pass-through tax through the county is placed. But for those categories, it's kind of business as usual, and expenses are coming in where we had them placed budget-wise. Now, alluding back to the vacancy credit, so through today, we've had half of our pay periods. Now, the majority of the expenses for personnel happen in the last part of the year just due to the nature of holiday pay, more overtime at the last part of the year. So there will be more expenses in the last half year for the personnel than in the first half, but we accounted for that in the projection. Now, given our headcount today, we project to be under budget on personnel, but like I said, if we added headcount, that figure could change. And then 2 items to note, even though if we are under budget on expenses, we still have to have revenue on the back end covering those expenses. Just one thing to keep in mind. And then, just one thing to keep in mind with that. And then going in some of the other funds, I'm going to glance through these quickly. Our enterprise funds, business as usual with those funds, but we have gained some revenue from the beginning balance to what our current balance is. Now, part of the reason that is those funds pay debt service payments in the third quarter, so it's pretty natural that we may carry a high fund balance in the second quarter to know that's going to come down later in the third quarter. And I attached the 2025 principal and interest payments for those bonds issued on this slide. And the same idea happens in the general fund too, where at the start of the year we get about a $30 million disbursement in property taxes, so we carry a high fund balance on paper, but that's going to be spent down throughout the year. Next, and we've talked about this in the past, our special highway fund, that is a stagnant revenue source, and we'll be talking about this more at the budget time, but to where we think that current fund balance is going to be basically around $200,000 to end the year, just with rising cost and then flat revenue growth with the gas tax. That's going to be a budget issue that we're going to have to kind of get through the next 2 years. And then as far as our internal service funds for IT, fleet, and facilities, like I said about 3 months ago, in the past we were never appropriately charging and recouping revenue in that fund from the expenses that we were incurring out. So we are carrying negative fund balances, but we're now going forward, we're charging enough to where hopefully those will get above zero before the end of the year. And then finally, our risk funds, that's our property insurance fund, our health insurance fund, our workers' comp fund, and then those carry some high fund balances. Now, we've talked a little bit about in 26, not charging for those funds because they have such high fund balances, and we feel comfortable that we can spend some of that down. That way, there's less expenses that are happening in the general fund, and those expenses will be transferred into revenue for the risk fund. So that's just kind of some quick analysis, but bottom line in the general fund, we are trending ahead of revenue on the year to where when we approved the budget about 9 months ago, we thought we were going to draw $10.6 million out of that unassigned reserve. Now today, we only think we're going to need 8.5 of that. But if we do hire a fall recruiting class for police and fire, that's going to be adding another $850,000 to where we think the ask at this point, if everything came as predicted, we'd only draw about $9.5 million out of that reserve instead of 10.6. So that's kind of the high level information that we wanted to share today, because that is another tool without using all of that unassigned reserve that we could use in the 2026 budget process as well.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Questions for Josh on his report? Seeing none? Thank you very much, Josh.
Yeah, thanks.
Madam Clerk, Agenda 5, consent agenda.
A is approval of a professional engineering contract between the City of Topeka and JEO Consulting Group Incorporated for providing professional engineering services for the Southwest Prairie Rain Drainage Improvement Project. B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Robert Perez, allowing and approving city expenditures for period April 26 through May 30, 2025, and enumerating said expenditures therein. B are minutes of the regular meeting of June 10 and June 17, 2025, and there is one cereal malt beverage license applications for Dillon's located at 2010 Southeast 29th Street, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay. For the consent agenda is read. Is there a motion from the body? Motion to approve by Councilman Miller, seconded by Councilwoman Valdivia-Alcala. Again, do we do the roll call, or can we just go ahead and use this?
You can use the system.
Okay, good. We're ready to vote then.
Councilmember Kell.
Yes.
Okay, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, action items. Madam Clerk.
A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez adopting the 2024 Uniform Plumbing Code to replace the 2018 edition, amending and repealing sections of Chapter 14.35 of the Topeka Municipal Code.
City Manager.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the governing body, Richard Faulkner, our Development Services Division Director, can lead us through this item and answer any questions you may have.
Richard, good to see you again.
Thank you. You want me to go over the presentation? Thank you, Mayor, Council. We are looking at trying to move forward with the adoption of the 2024 Plumbing Code. The adoption will help us provide better services to our community and remain flexible with any changes in the industry. At the present time, the city has several codes that we use. Some of them are just for residential and some are for commercial and residential and some are for commercial. This particular code, the plumbing code, will be used for residential and commercial use. The city of Topeka recognizes that we need to have standards for our residents so they can have safe and improve their quality of life. So we adopt the codes. This is a national code which is updated every 3 years. The industry standard is that you should have your codes within 6 to 9 years of the issuance of each code. So we're not in that standard, but we will when we adopt, if we adopt this code. The code is published by the International Association of Plumbing and Mechanical Officials. This board is made up of people that work in the industry, owners of businesses, and developers. So they all participate in the design and the implementation of this code. This code, we will use it for installation and repair of plumbing systems within our community. So it is a code that's well recognized, and it will prove beneficial to our community by, like I said, improving the quality of life and the safety of the plumbing systems within our community. As you can see, there are the communities that we compare ourselves to. Most of them are in the 2018 code. Also, I want to acknowledge that they are in the International Plumbing Code, and we use the Uniform Plumbing Code, which are two different code books, but they both have a standard, which is important. It's just that, in my opinion, the Uniform Code is a more complete code than the International Code. The International Code tends to refer you to other standards when implementing their code. So I think our code is, I think using this one is more user-friendly than the International Code. The board that reviewed the code are in the plumbing industry. We have business owners, master plumbers, and contractors. So they reviewed the code, and the code that we're presenting tonight is what they came up with the amendments. We also, the plumbing inspectors served, I was served as providing information and direction to the board. We started in February, so it took us a little while, but not too long to get through it. And so we also reached out to people in the industry and let them know that we were changing the code, let them know when the meetings were held, and that they were invited if they wanted to come. So the Plumbing Board has recommended that we adopt the 2024 Uniform Plumbing Code with the amendments. Some of the amendments, our amendments that we generally have been cut in half because they've been incorporated into the national code. So they've become a part of the code, so our amendments have cut in half, which I think speaks greatly to the professionalism of our team and how they pay attention to what needs to be done. So I think we have a good plumbing board. Staff also supports the recommendation that we adopt the code.
Okay.
For any questions?
I see we have a question from Councilman Duncan.
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to say thank you to the staff and Richard. A couple years ago, this governing body decided we really wanted to make sure that all these were much more current than they had been. That's been a lot of years of work of Richard and all the citizens and boards that we've put together to make sure that this almost gets us that list you saw at the start. We're now kind of right there on most of our codes, and now it'll get easier to kind of update them. So I just want to thank Richard, the staff, and the citizens who worked on this, because we kind of pushed them and they did a great job to get us there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. I see that we have a motion to approve by Councilman Dover and a second by Councilman Miller. Okay, if we can vote, please.
You can go ahead and cast your vote. Mayor, no vote on this one for you.
All right.
Councilmember Kell, your vote?
Yes.
We didn't get a display.
Oh, sorry. How about I hit the voting button?
Always helps.
Very good. That's helpful. Okay, we have 9 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Richard. Action item B, Madam Clerk.
B is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of Councilmembers Sylvia Ortiz, David Banks, and Neil Dobler, recommending approval of project numbers 291149 Phase 5 and 291150 Phase 3 for the North Topeka wastewater treatment plant boiler system replacement.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Sylvia Davis, our Utilities Director, will lead us through this item.
Good evening, Mayor, governing body. Tonight, we come before you after presenting to the Public Infrastructure Committee, requesting authorization for a project to replace the boiler system at our North Topeka wastewater treatment plant. This request is for funding of $593,000 to replace the outdated, antiquated system with a new system so that we can continue operations at that facility.
Any questions for the Director? Okay. Seeing none, I see a motion to approve by Councilman Banks, second by Councilwoman Ortiz, and we can vote.
Councilmember Kell?
Yes.
Okay, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, Sylvia. Excellent presentation. 10 votes like that. Yeah, she got the next one. Action item C, Madam Clerk.
C is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of Councilmembers Sylvia Ortiz, David Banks, and Neil Dobler, recommending approval of project numbers 281300 Phase 3, 281301 Phase 3, and 281331 Phase 3 for the Montara Northway Waterline project.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Sylvia Davis, our Utilities Director, will lead us through this item as well.
All right, again, we did present this project to the Public Infrastructure Committee at their last meeting. This request is for $5,731,840 to replace approximately 12,000 linear feet of pipe in the Montara neighborhood from Montara Northway over to Southwest Fieldwood Drive, Windsong Drive on the west side, and Windwood Lane on the east side. So this is a system of anywhere between 4 and 12-inch piping, and is a high risk of failure. We have a large history of a lot of water main breaks in this area, and we're excited to be down there and start replacing some water line for them.
Any questions for the Director? Is there a motion from the body? Motion to approve by Councilman Dobler, second by Councilman Miller. Ready to vote?
Yes. Councilmember Kell?
Yes.
Okay, we have 10, there we go. 10 yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. Action item D, Madam Clerk.
D is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of council members David Banks, Sylvia Ortiz, and Neil Dobler, amending the 2023 to 2025 CIB and the 2023 to 2032 CIP to provide additional funding for project number 841091 Phase 2, the 2023 Pavement Management Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Program.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the governing body, Steve Grahn, our Public Works Director, will lead us through this item.
Good evening, governing body. The next two items are related to the Summerfield neighborhood project. During the course of construction, there were several areas of bituminous pavement that have failed. And in order to complete the project successfully, we're first looking for your approval to amend the 2023 to 2025 CIB and the 2023 to 2032 CIP to provide additional funding for this project, funded from the 2023 Pavement Management Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Program. This project was approved by the Public Infrastructure Committee at its last meeting.
Okay. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Summerfield is not that old, so it's just distressing, and maybe I'm wrong, to see the pavement falling apart the way it is. Is there an explanation for that? And do we have other neighborhoods that we should expect to have the same thing happen?
No, the councilwoman, this project was related also to a major storm sewer improvement project.
Okay.
This whole neighborhood is serviced by one ingress and egress, and all the construction traffic coming down the same road, especially with the weather we had earlier this year. There were just a lot more areas of pavement that failed. It's specific to this project and the subgrade in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilman Banks. That's all right.
I think that when we are infrastructure committee, myself as the chair of that committee, it may seem to the public that we're just rubber stamping things that come up in our committee, but what we're doing is trying to prevent situations that might come later in the year, or especially when it's cold and we have breakage. We're trying to get ahead of any infrastructure problems that we may come across, and our current systems in many cases is already breaking down. So we're not just rubber stamping, we're trying to improve our infrastructure for the city, and not just in my district, but throughout the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further comments? Is there a motion? Oh, and see they got you covered. Okay. Councilwoman Valdivia Acula.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you tell me how old this subdivision is?
I cannot tell you that.
1988.
1988.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
We have no further questions, or have a motion from Councilman Banks to approve, and a second by Councilwoman Ortiz. We're ready to vote.
Councilmember Kell?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay. Action item E, Madam Clerk.
E is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of council members Sylvia Ortiz, David Banks, and Neil Dobler, recommending approval of project number 841091 Phase 2 for street improvements in the Summerfield neighborhood.
City Manager.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the governing body, Steve Grahn, Director of Public Works, will lead us through this item.
This is the second item related to Summerfield. It's the aforementioned item to increase the CIB and the CIP. We're looking for an additional $750,000 funding to address the pavement deterioration that we discussed previously. This project is funded through the citywide half-cent sales tax, and also stormwater funds paid for the stormwater improvements.
Questions for Steve? Motion from the body? Oh, Councilman Dobler.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, there's been a couple questions about the age of the subdivision. It's the pavement there is asphalt. I'm sure it's been repaired at some point in the past. The subdivision's almost, I hate to say it, almost 40 years old, so it's fairly old. What I want to point out is, for a long time, we did not have the resources to do the kind of pavement rehabilitation and maintenance that we do now with the citywide half-cent sales tax. I noticed just driving around the last 3 or 4 weeks, the city has a contractor out there that's sealing the cracks that appear across the pavement. I mean, that kills a pavement. You get a crack in there, water gets in there. In the winter, that water freezes, and pretty soon your pavement's gone. Great job, by the way, Steve, from the crews that are out there doing that, because it's very cost effective. It doesn't cost a ton to do that, and it seals the pavement up and gets another 5 to 10 years of life out of it if it's done regularly. So that wasn't done in the past, and that's why we see in subdivisions like Summerfield the need to reconstruct a lot of the pavement. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve by Councilman Miller and a second by Councilman Banks. We're ready to vote.
Councilmember Kell?
Yes.
Okay, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. Action item F, Madam Clerk.
F is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee comprised of Councilmembers Sylvia Ortiz, David Banks, and Neil Dobler, recommending approval of project numbers 601160 Phase 2 and 501107 Phase 4 for the historic Holiday Park Neighborhood Dreams 1 project.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Steve Groen, our Director of Public Works, will lead us through this item.
As mentioned, this is a Dreams 1 project in the historic Holiday Park neighborhood. It'll include a mill and overlay, some curb and gutter replacement, sidewalk, and some pedestrian ramp replacements, as well as some stormwater replacement on Western Avenue. This project was approved by the Public Infrastructure Committee at its last meeting, and we're looking for your support to commence with this project.
Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask this question at the committee meeting, but I was unable to attend. Is this Holiday Park neighborhood, does that include the Huntoon project, Steve?
The Huntoon project, this neighborhood does overlap the Huntoon corridor, but it is not part of the Huntoon project that's under design.
Okay.
This is independent of that.
I had a question. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask this, but we had discussions about complete streets when that project came up. Could you just update us on where the design is with that project, and are we still looking at complete streets on that?
Yes, sir. The engineering is ongoing. We've just had a project update with Bartlett and West today. The design is progressing fine. We have a public open house scheduled at the library on August 13th, and yes, we are currently implementing complete street elements into our design.
Okay. How much is that? Do you have any idea how much that's adding to the cost of the project?
That would add, there'd be some widening of the road is related to that, and some street lighting, some crosswalks. Based on a conversation earlier today, I asked our consultant, and they estimated somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million. It is an $18.5 million project.
And that's part of the countywide half-cent sales tax program?
Yes, it is.
Are we going to have enough money to finish all of the city projects in that program?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You have a motion to approve by Councilwoman Hiller and a second by Councilwoman Ortiz. We're ready to vote.
Councilmember Kell?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Just a comment, thank you, Steve. Just a comment, kind of follow up on what Councilman Banks shared with us. I really want to thank the Public Infrastructure Committee for its work. This was put into place, about 4 years ago? We put this committee in as a standing committee. And it has really been probably one of the hardest working committees, I think, to help bring things forward. And quite honestly, the people who have taken their turn to serve on that committee really helps this agenda move quickly as well, too, when it comes to us with their recommendation to approve, because we know that there's been a lot of discussion before it ever gets here. So I want to thank all the committee members for their continued service on that committee, like many others. But this is a very hard-working committee, and I want to thank you, Councilman Banks, for being the chair for that. Move on to the action item G, Madam Clerk.
G is a resolution introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez authorizing the use of $34,216.74 from the unassigned reserve fund for repair of the York Chiller at Hotel Topeka and rescinding resolution number 9549.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Braxton Copley, our Deputy City Manager, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, City Manager, governing body. Best practice for any hotel or commercial building is to have redundant air conditioning units to handle the cooling of the facility, because if you have to take one of the units down for maintenance, you want to be able to still cool it. Last year, we reconstructed the Train air conditioning unit. That was a cost of about $250,000. The York unit, which is our other chiller unit, is 30 years old, is at the end of its useful life. We know that the barrel is cracked, it's leaking Freon, it's not that efficient, and what this request is simply to provide us with sufficient funding to do the minimal repairs necessary to get that York unit up to speed and get it topped off with Freon, so that if we need to take the Train unit down, or if we get one of those really bad Kansas days, if it's 100 degrees out and 90% humidity, and the one chiller is not sufficient to cool that atrium and all the guest rooms, we have the ability to supplement that. Also, we have identified that this particular project is a higher need to the hotel, and we are proposing rescinding resolution 9549, which was approved many months ago by the governing body, and that was to approve $125,000 for some civil site repairs. So what this resolution will do is effectively allow us to put $91,000 back into the unassigned reserve funds, and to take care of this critical need to have our secondary chiller at Hotel Topeka function. With that, I would respectfully ask for you to approve this resolution.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Heard that explanation. Is there a motion from the body? Motion to approve by Councilman Miller, second by Councilman Dobler. We're ready to vote.
Councilmember Kell?
Yes.
Okay, we have 7 yes, the motion carries. We have council members Valdivia, Acala, Ortiz, and Banks voting no.
Okay. Action item H, Madam Clerk.
H is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez, amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinances by Section 1850-050 of the Topeka Municipal Code in order to amend the Master Planned Unit Development Plan for Fairlawn Acres Development C2 and M3 uses located at 605 Southwest Fairlawn to increase the size of the allowable C2 commercial tract and rezone the parcel located at 601 Southwest Fairlawn from C4 Commercial District in order to add this parcel to the PUD Master Plan for Fairlawn Acres Development.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Dan Warner, our Planning Division Director, and Amanda Stanley, our City Attorney, will lead us through this item.
Dan?
Good morning, or good evening, Mayor, governing body. Nice to see everybody again. So I'll try to walk you through this PUD case. So the PUD change is necessary to enlarge the current approved C2 area for the existing zoning on that property and also rezone 601 Southwest Fairlawn from C4 to the PUD. And just a reminder, 601 Fairlawn is at the northeast corner of the site, and that is the existing car repair lot on the site. If this project's approved, that site likely will be part of the stormwater management for this project. The overall PUD also includes some multifamily, which is part of Area 2. The overall acreage is about 5 acres for the C2 use and 1.28 for the M3 uses. So as noted on the PUD plan and stated by the applicant at the Planning Commission meeting, the proposed use will not be a truck stop. It will not include showers or overnight parking of trucks, for example. The proposed use is a 6,000 square foot convenience store that has fueling islands for 10 cars, 5 semi-trucks, and a truck scale, and about 1.28 acres. It's a possible multifamily site. The applicant submitted a traffic impact study well in advance of submitting a PUD application, and that gave engineering staff plenty of time to review that traffic impact study. So two required improvements out of that traffic impact study are a new traffic signal at 7th and Fairlawn and the extension of the median south of 6th Street for right-in, right-out only for the entrance onto Fairlawn or from Fairlawn. The city is also requiring the project to reconstruct and widen Southwest 7th Street. This is an example of a Maverick convenience store in another community. This particular example is a similar type store that they're proposing here in Topeka. This is in Lincoln, Nebraska. This night view of the project shows the site lighting on the property. So the applicant held a well-attended neighborhood information meeting. Planning Commission considered the item and recommended approval at their May 19th meeting. Staff recommends approval as well. One final note from me is that the project received, the city received a valid protest petition on this item, which increases the required voting thresholds for this project. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Okay. Before we move into any voting mode, I ask the city attorney to explain overview of the voting procedure because of the petition.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The mayor asked me to review your voting options since protest petitions are not something that you get on a regular basis. When you do get a valid protest petition, all 10 members of the governing body must be present in person or electronically in order to vote, or the vote cannot occur under our city code. In making this decision, you are acting in a judicial capacity rather than a legislative capacity, and that is a key distinction. You are acting as rulers on the evidence in front of you rather than as legislators and policymakers. The appellate courts require that you make these decisions based only on the evidence that Dan has presented to you and that are in your packet. We do not do public comment on this item at the governing body level per city code. So the evidence you can consider are your planning commission minutes, your public hearing comments from the planning commission, and other documents that are part of the agenda item. You can also ask Dan any questions you may have. When weighing your decisions, you need to think about the factors that are commonly known as the golden factors. These are replicated in our city code. Just as a refresher, the items that you can think about are the character of the neighborhood, the zoning and the use of the nearby properties, the suitability of the property for the requested rezoning, the extent to which the removal of the current zoning will detrimentally affect nearby property, the length of time, if any, the property has remained vacant as currently zoned, the relative gain to the public health, safety, and welfare from maintaining the present zoning compared to the hardship imposed to the landowner rezoning applicant. The Kansas Supreme Court has made clear that the community at large is the community that you must compare the public health and safety of the welfare to, not the individual neighborhood that may be affected. And then you're also to consider the recommendation of the planning staff and the conformance with the city's comprehensive plan. These decisions, because a valid protest petition has been filed, all of you are present. You must continue to remain present for the vote. If you would like to pass the Planning Commission's vote, it does require a supermajority of 8 votes. If you would like to first amend the Planning Commission's vote, that takes 7 votes and then 8 votes to pass it as amended. 7 votes are required if you would like to override the Planning Commission by rejecting the amendment that has been requested. And then 6 votes are required to send it back to the Planning Commission. And then per recent case law, in a case called Austin Properties versus the City of Shawnee from 2025, you do have to keep voting until you have a vote that receives the required number of votes. So nobody goes home until you get one of these votes. And so I'm happy to stand for any questions.
And in addition to that explanation, I thank you, City Attorney. There is the requirement for me to ask for ex parte communications, and I can ask for that now, and then we can go into any discussion if you wish. So, prior to proceeding with the vote, each member of the governing body who has engaged in ex parte communication with any individual either in favor of or against the matter being considered must state that that communication occurred and indicate that even in light of having engaged in the communication, that they were able to fairly, objectively, and impartially consider the measure based only upon the evidence provided on the record. The record includes the staff report, commission minutes, the testimony provided by at the May Planning Commission meeting, or similar relevant information related to the matter. So now I will ask the body if there are any ex parte communications to bring forward. Councilwoman Hofer.
Because this is close to me, I've received somewhere around 70 or 80 emails. I've had several phone calls, and I've talked to one of the representatives from Maverick to answer more questions, but I feel like I can impartially cast my vote.
Thank you. Councilman Dover? Oh.
Even though I'm not close to this area, I have still received 70 or 80 emails, a number of phone calls. I have not met with Maverick, so, but I do feel like I can make an impartial decision. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Valdivia.
I received emails, and I believe I can make an impartial decision.
Okay. Councilman Banks.
Mayor, I've had many emails, a couple of phone calls, and with that, I think that I can make an impartial decision in voting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Miller.
I just want to state for the record that I too also did receive an abundance of emails, and I'll say 95% of them leaned a certain direction, but even though with all of that, I will be able to impartially make a decision.
Councilman Duncan.
I'll just cut and paste all previous comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have received a lot of communication, both in person and through email, telephone calls, stops in the stores, you name it, I've received it, and I can make a fair decision.
Thank you, ma'am. Marcus, do you still need to speak? Okay. And I too, I'm sorry, is that the Deputy Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm very similar. I received several emails and a couple of phone calls on this issue. And I feel like making an impartial decision.
Okay, thank you. And myself have received numerous communications via email, none with personally or any with Maverick, but I feel I can make a fair and objective decision as well. So now that we have revealed those ex parte communications, before we move into a vote, are any questions for Dan or discussion that we'd like to have on this item moving forward? Councilman Dobler, then Councilwoman Hofer.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan, I've just got some questions about the traffic study. So that has been through city engineering. Did they review? Did they have questions? How did that happen?
Councilman, I think I'll let Mr. Copley answer that question.
Thank you. Yes, it was actually a well-prepared traffic impact study. It was done by a group called Olson, and they submitted the initial study that went to staff. It was reviewed by our city staff as well as our third-party consultant, which is Bench, that provides us advice on that. There was a subsequent report, or a supplement report that was issued as well that added some additional recommendations relative to pavement markings and lane configuration north of there. As Dan indicated, the primary recommendations were a right-in, right-out off of Fairlawn into the site, and then taking the traffic out onto 7th Street, and then adding a traffic signal at 7th and Fairlawn and coordinating that signal with 6th and Fairlawn. I reviewed the study myself. It was comprehensive. It was well done. It was very thorough, and I agreed with the recommendations. One of the things that was not in the TIS but was addressed by city staff and our Benish, our consultant, was the additional semi-traffic on 7th Street, because currently it's not constructed well enough to be able to handle that, nor is it wide enough to accommodate the turning movements of the semi-trucks onto 7th. So hopefully that fully answers your question in terms of the TIS, and was approved by traffic engineering.
So if this project proceeds and there's a signal placed on 7th Street, we would have, going north on Fairlawn, we'd have a signal at 10th Street, currently have a signal at 8th Street, we'd have a signal at 7th Street, and then another signal at 6th Street. Would these be timed like, say, the signal between 21st Street and 19th Terrace on Wanamaker, where I actually sat this morning for about 2 minutes with no cross traffic? Assume they'd be timed a little bit better than that. Is that, I guess, you don't need to answer that. How common is it on a arterial like Fairlawn to have 4 signals within half a mile?
It is not that, excuse me, it is not that. I heard someone say they couldn't hear me before, so I'm trying to speak up a little bit more. It is not that common. We absolutely would want to have those signals coordinated to make sure that traffic would flow. The reason for the additional signal at 7th is to be able, because the sight lines are not very good, to be able to get a large truck out to make that left-hand movement to go north, and to be able to get those vehicles out onto Fairlawn safely and travel north. We would need to have that additional signal, and absolutely they would have to be coordinated.
Thank you, Braxton. One, if I could impose, yes, Mayor, just one more question for Dan. I mean, part of this goes to the character of the neighborhood. What was on that site previously?
Previously, it was a hotel.
Was there semi-truck parking allowed?
I imagine there would have been, yeah.
Are there gas stations in that area right now?
There's one across the street, directly across the street, a small gas station. I'm not sure where else along there.
Are they set up to serve semi-trucks?
I don't believe that one I mentioned is.
Okay. Is there a school located close to this? I'm asking Dan if I could, thank you.
South of here, south of that site.
At what street?
8th or 9th? 8th. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Councilwoman Hofer.
Because I live close to this, I know it well. So about the property. It has been vacant since 2017, and over the time while Ramada languished, there were many break-ins, a few fires, copper stolen out of the building and the AC units, homeless living inside, and even an attempted carjacking. It was across the street from there, and that was my first encounter with the problems that were happening there when I was first on council. Just last year, the building was finally demolished. A lot of those problems went with the building. So now we have a vacant, empty lot. And I don't know how long it's going to sit as a vacant, empty lot. In April, I got notice of the neighborhood meeting. I am not in the notification area, but I let my neighbors know that this was happening, and we got several people there. We got a lot of questions answered, which was great. And they were able to be addressed, some before the Plan Commission and some just to alleviate people's minds. I did check with some of the businesses along 7th Street to make sure they knew about the neighborhood meeting and the Planning Commission meeting. When the Planning Commission meeting came, 3 people showed up to speak to it. 2 were neighbors, and 1 was a neighboring business. That was a little disappointing because that's when we have the public's ability to speak. So Planning Commission didn't really know how the neighborhood felt. And I want people to know, if there's a Planning Commission or a neighborhood meeting, show up. People will try and let you know the best they can, but they can't always reach everyone. I did spend some time talking to one of the Maverick representatives to find out more about the company than what I could find on the website. It was a company that was started in the 1800s. It's a family business still. It's based out of Utah. They have 400 stations nationwide, and this is part of the system they are trying to connect down I-70. They are currently looking at a couple other towns along I-70, so this would be another stop. The company is very employee-oriented, and they're looking to hire about 25 people. They also are a community-based company. They like to invest in the communities they're in. For an example, Grand Tetons National Park is the theme of several of their stations in that area, and they help support the national park. So to me, it's a good company I would like to see in the community. But I don't think this is the appropriate location. My biggest problem with the station is the location for the traffic and what it's going to do to our roads. I'm not sure we've still done the best job of handling the traffic, getting it in and out. I drive by there every day. I know the traffics. I see the problems with the school when it's time to drop off kids, pick up kids. The traffic can get backed up quite a ways, even past 7th Street. So I'm not sure this is the best place. I do want to have Maverick in town. And people say, no, you don't need to think about property taxes, sales tax, fuel tax, that's not important. Well, it is, because it's going to affect everyone's property taxes. It could help. We want to encourage new businesses in town. So I'm going to work with Maverick, and there's a few others, to try and find that location that will fit the city the best. So unfortunately, I'm going to vote no.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. My question, I guess, is more about the traffic study and the impact, and what the traffic study said about the impacts on not just the traffic on the roadway, but the actual children from that school that go by that spot every single day for 9 months of the year. For what it's worth, I think that's the portion that I'm most concerned about. I didn't do the good work that Councilmember Hofer did, bless her heart. I don't know if the safety of the nearby kids has truly been addressed. I'm sure there's some options that can come from that, but if from the golden factors is the place I'm supposed to base my vote, I don't know if I feel comfortable that number 6 has been addressed adequately. And that's just from my understanding of it. I would like some assurances from the Planning Commission that this developer truly understands that, and that we can adequately address that for the public to understand and for our purpose in voting for what we need to do. So that's what I'll say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, and then after that, I believe Deputy Mayor would like to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a number of issues looking at the golden criteria that I have concerns about, and I would say this was also the criteria that was used when there was the outcry from the neighbors with the duplexes and fourplexes, I think, that are going to be going out along Rochester by Highway 24. Those folks all went to the Planning Commission meetings. Those folks had individual community meetings. Those folks had a lawyer. Those folks had a petition. There were concerns I had about the flooding that I had seen pictures of back in the 90s from that specific area. There was issues about the narrow streets that large machinery was going to be coming in and out of, how it was going to impact the traffic flow in such a congested area. So in addition to that, I was listening to constituents that were bringing all these concerns to me and had been to the Planning Commission meeting, folks, and it still got approved. But anyway, because of the concerns that I have with this and the golden criteria, I will not be able to vote for this as well. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, so I've been in Colorado Springs for the last week. I've gone to Maverick. They're a very nice gas station. They, as Councilwoman Hofer said, they decorate them with the theme of the area, so they have a lot of mountain-esque things here. Great company, it seems like. My fear is the road safety on our city streets, but also on the I-70. That's a very off-on crossing traffic in that area right there already. And now we're going to maybe possibly put a semi with a very short notice to get over to cause issues there. And then, like I said, our city streets, they might just back that up, especially during school time, and we're going to have more accidents on I-70. So to me, it's a very big safety issue, and that's where I'm having some issues. So I will be voting no on this.
Councilman Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Dan. Dan, isn't there a business on the corner of 6th and Fairlawn?
correct, on the southwest corner.
Okay. What's the conversation, if any, has been had with that business owner?
That's part of the project. If this project were to be approved, that auto repair business would transition to part of the stormwater management for the entire site. That property is part of this zoning application.
I have wrestled very hard with a decision on how I would vote, and how it would affect the neighborhood. Certainly, as a governing body, we look forward to businesses coming to town, new businesses especially. I also have concerns about, the owner of that small business. How is he or she going to be affected by a bigger place coming in? I know that place is going to be gone if the Maverick business come to town. So is it a positive move, or?
I believe the gentleman was at the neighborhood information meeting, so I think it's part of the deal. It's part of that's about all I can say. He's going to sell if this gets approved, I believe.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I will confess I've been a little overwhelmed by all of the input that we've gotten from the public, and then also the amount of material to read through and feel like I definitely understood it in the packet. So in trying to sort that out, because it made it sound like it was a big truck stop off highways, I had to go back in and discover there wasn't any overnight parking and a lot of the things that seemed to be coming through in the concerns. In short, Dan, are you familiar, is the planning staff familiar with the content of all of the input that we've gotten as the council, do you think?
Yeah, I think generally, yes.
Okay. Are there elements of what concerns that were raised that maybe didn't get to the planning commission to consider in their vote? When I look at a 7-0 vote, I want to respect that, but if we need to send it back to them, okay, but I don't want to waste anybody's time either. Were they aware of the various issues?
As Councilwoman Hofer mentioned, only 3 people showed up to the PC meeting, so I'm not positive the planning commission understood all of the feedback that was happening. That might have happened maybe even after the planning commission meeting, so.
Okay. I guess if they didn't, my concern is I want them to be processing that information ahead of us anyway. So, thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Duncan.
So this is for the city attorney. A clarification here. If there's a motion to approve and it does not get 8 votes, what happens at that point?
We sit here till someone makes another motion of either to reject, send back to the planning commission, or amend.
Okay, and so if number 2 is made to, I guess in this case it'd be reject as opposed to override, what then happens if that is successful? If you reject, I don't think I've sat here 6 years and rejected. We've sent back, we've done other things. I don't think I reject. What's the process then?
If you make a motion and 7 votes are received to reject it, then the applicant that is requesting can go to district court to override this decision if it's not based off reasonable golden factors.
Okay, and then step 3 is we remand it back with whatever our concerns are and hope that they take another look at those.
And to be clear too, even if you pass it, that also triggers a right to appeal by the property owners that filed a protest petition. So they can also go to district court.
Okay.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you. I'm going to actually make a motion to remand back to the Planning Commission so that they are fully aware the impact and the advice from not just the council, but from the community as well at large. I think it's very important that although 3 people were able to make a meeting, that clearly was not the response that we got. That's clearly not the response that's here in this room right now. And so in an effort to make sure that the Planning Commission does hear all of that response, that's what my motion is going to be for.
Councilwoman Valdivia-Acala.
Thank you, Mayor. That is something I will not be supporting, and I will tell folks that are here in the audience that, again, I don't want to try to conflate the two. I just want to talk about the experience that was had when there was a huge neighbor, kind of uprising with these duplexes. This is not a filling station, I get it. Duplexes, fourplexes. Again, my concerns, golden criteria were not met. Pictures I saw from the folks that had concerns, all the concerns they had, they went to the meeting. I even was told, these are allegations, but I was told that planning, some zoning questions that were asked of the public were rude in their nature. And so they knew what was coming down the pike. They had their public comment. They went and sat when they couldn't public comment. They sat here. They did everything, and it still went through. So that is definitely not something that I will be supporting, because my no is going to be a no. Thank you.
Councilman Dober.
Yeah, question for the city attorney. If we remand this back to the planning commission, we also have to send instructions, is that correct?
Correct. So you would need to send instructions on what you want the planning commission to relook at. If it's specific questions about the traffic flow or impact to how kids are walking to school, or something that you want them to specifically look at.
Thank you.
Yep.
As a follow-up on that, before I acknowledge Councilwoman Ortiz, in doing so, if we were to do that, will we do it this evening? So-
Yes, if you were to make a motion to remand, it would go back to the planning commission. They would take it up at their next meeting. Then they would either make a recommendation to continue to support what they found, to make a recommendation to change, to make amendments. Then it comes back to you. A second protest petition is not required under Austin versus City of Shawnee. Now we would continue to keep the supermajority vote when it came back, and so it would still require 8 votes when it came back.
Okay. Councilwoman Ortiz.
That was going to be my question. There's a motion on the floor to send it back, but what instructions are we going to give them, because we haven't said that, number one. Number two, to Amanda, because there's a petition out there, if I'm just saying, if this gets approved, what happens to that petition? It's just part of the process?
Yes, so we do have clarity now from the Supreme Court, since this decision came out, that says you only have to do the work of a protest petition once. It holds when it comes back up, so it maintains the supermajority.
Okay. I don't want to support sending this back to the Planning Commission. I don't feel that it fits that neighborhood. I think we've overwhelmingly heard that, even though there might have been 3 people that attended the Planning Commission. I know a lot of people that I've heard from, and a lot of them are some of my friends that I went to school with, worked with. They don't live within that, is it 200-mile radius, or what is that, Dan, that you have to only notify within the 200-mile?
200 feet.
200 feet, they don't live within that. They live outside of that, so they were not notified until they started talking. And then they were. I am very concerned. My grandson went to Landon, and I tell you, Landon's only got one way in and one way out. You can't get out the back side of it. You can't get out the side. There's one way in and one way out. And a lot of the parents, they pick up at the roller skating ring. So my vote would be a no on this, because I don't think it fits the neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We do have a motion on the floor. There's been, is there a second at all?
Can I clarify what my motion is?
Yeah, because his motion wasn't sufficient, so it needs some clarification.
So my motion is to to remand it back to the Planning Commission for them to consider for further public engagement, and also to see if there's a way to work with the developer to address the most, what I feel is the most high prioritized concern is the safety of those kids, and wonder if there's a way to make the business hours of the school safer for the children during the time that the Maverick will be open, which is 24 hours anyway. So would they be able and would they be willing to work with the city on how to make a safer transition for that place to be in existence along with our school? That was a long way of saying that, yes, but you know what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, so now I have a second from Councilman Duncan.
So I will second it, Mayor, with the following add-on addendum. And then if the governing body's not great with that, I'm okay with that too, but I want to give us the options and understand what some of our directions are. So here are some additional clarifications I think that need to be made. It's still unclear as to whether or not 7th Street, it's in the report, but how, if it needs to be widened and who is going to be responsible for any work along 7th Street. I would like clarification on that. I would like some clarification on further examination by the Planning Commission on Councilman Dobler's concern about having stoplights 4 in a row on 4 consecutive streets, as I think that is a unique situation that could create some traffic flow issues unless we have some understanding of what those will look like, how they will be timed. I would like some more clarification in the traffic study. While it does a good job of telling us the current traffic flow, I'm not sure that it takes into full account increased traffic flow that we have been told by Maverick will occur because more people will want to go to this, including trucks. There is a note in here that the bridge needs to be widened to make this area safer, and that when the time comes that KDOT's going to work on the bridge, that needs to be done. Well, when is KDOT going to work on the bridge? Is it going to be in a year? Is it going to be in 10 years? Since that's part of this study that says that would be an important safety piece, I would like to get clarification on that. There's a comment in here about concerns about right turns off of 7th Street. I'd like to know if the plan is then to not allow right turns, or what the impact of that could be if we're going to allow right turns on red. There's a concern in the report about right turns on red. And I would like some clarification on 6th Street. I've heard 2 different responses. One, I've been told that KDOT or the state is somehow responsible for 6th Street. I've also heard that because there's no plan in this to do any kind of outlet road to 6th Street. One reason given was that we aren't allowed to do that by the state. The other reason given was that it was a cost issue. I'm not sure there's a wrong answer, but I don't have clarification on that. And then the last one I can't really, but to Councilman Miller's point, it is up to the Planning Commission as to whether when we remand something back, they again allow public comment. They do not have to. I believe our recommendation would be that they probably should do a hearing with more public comment now that more people are engaged and involved. So that would be my addendum to Councilman Miller's list of things that we have concerns with that I think fall right under the golden factors and give them something actual to work on and work towards to provide answers back to us. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for the details, because it's important to understand that if we remand, if that is our decision, we've got to give them the details of what we want them to look at and bring back in order, rather than just think about it or think it over, because that's not going to be sufficient. So still under a motion and a second, I have Councilman Dobler for comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for the city attorney. If we were in fact to reject this motion and then override the Planning Commission's recommendation, obviously going to district court's an option, would it also be an option to come back with a different plan?
Yes, that would be in the applicant's control. They could file a new application and start something else, or they could file a motion in district court. That would be their choice.
Okay, but they could go back,
They could
revise, come up with a new plan that address some of the issues that have been raised. Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple concerns. Just this is a suggestion for how that reasoning might be phrased a little differently, and that is to just make sure that the Planning Commission is delivered all of the various concerns that we had, whether it's people in person or not, but that anything, and we verify whether that was considered. Let them get all the information that came to us, let them look at, with staff's help, whether it was considered or not, and then duly review it, whether it's the noise of the semis, whether it's the turns, and so on. I want to add one to that list that was a call that I got, and I don't know if other people got it, and that individual was concerned about the volume of traffic coming on and off and the requirement to, on I-70 itself, to weave and change lanes because of the US 75 intersection right there. And I don't know if that was considered, and it's my fault if I didn't get all the way through the traffic study and see it. But I hadn't heard that, and it also reminded me that, at least in serving on the MTPO, when we were talking about the Polk Quincy Viaduct, I think the whole council saw it too, but there was the part that we're working on right now, and even in our CIP, we have the east leg that goes down to Adams as a second project, and we have the leg that's in that area as a third project. We're being asked for $19 million for that, a share of it, not just that KDOT would do it. But what struck me when that came up was that I think it was KDOT's map, but it was coded red in there because of the danger, and that's the constricted area, I think, but also the way the traffic moves there. And so, again, if it was already considered by the Planning Commission, was mentioned in the study, fine. Otherwise, I think the volume of on-off traffic should probably be considered as well. I want to remind everyone, I think I read it in our instructions, but we have to be careful that it's either the golden decision or otherwise that says that we cannot make those decisions based on a plebiscite in terms of whatever people think. It needs to be based on the data that are in that fact. And so considering sending it back to them to consider everything seemed to be the wisest to me. Thank you.
Councilman Miller. Okay. So we've had our discussion and a motion and a second. And the motion again, for everybody in the audience to make clear, Madam Clerk, could you repeat the motion, please?
Maybe just a point of clarification. I think it's important to recognize some of what the Planning Commission does and some of what they can try to take all of this into account. They're not traffic engineers, so they're going to rely on some of the reporting. But it sounds like to me what I'm hearing is that you would like them to go back and have additional public commentary, but to make sure that based off all of the traffic concerns that were listed by Councilman Miller and Councilman Duncan and Councilman Hiller, that is all under perhaps number 6 of the golden factors, the relative gain to the public health and safety and welfare from maintaining the present zoning compared to the hardship, as well as the character of the neighborhood and the suitability of the property for the requested rezoning. So maybe like 1, 3, and 6. Are those any other ones that I missed in my summary of what I thought I heard? Okay.
Okay. All of the governing body members understanding our responsibility right now on this particular motion. So if there's no further discussion, we'll be voting to remand back to the Planning Commission. Madam Clerk?
All right, we're ready to go. You can vote. Councilmember Kell?
No.
Okay, the motion carries. We have 8 yes with council members Valdivia, Akla, and Kell voting no.
Okay, thank you for the discussion. Move on now to action item I. Madam Clerk.
I is a resolution introduced by Mayor Michael Padilla acknowledging the city manager's successful completion of performance objectives.
Okay, and in this case, I won't ask the city manager to walk us through this. But my comments on this would be that we have, as a body, done our duty and responsibility to the city manager to inform him of his performance and our pleasure with what he has been able to accomplish in the time he has been with us, and as a body, we'd like to continue to move forward with him as our city manager and meet the expectations as outlined in his contract. So I would like to make a motion to approve this resolution. I don't have a button. Then give me one. There I go. It's not working. So that's my motion. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Miller.
Let me switch you guys around here. I don't think it's...
Got it over there, Brenda?
Yep.
Okay.
We can vote.
We're ready to vote.
Yep. Councilmember Kell?
Yes.
Okay, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. And again, thank you, City Manager, for your service with the city. We look forward to continue working hard with you to bring things good to the city. Thank you very much. My pleasure, sir. Thank you to the governing body members. Okay, we'll move on to non-action items. Madam Clerk.
A is discussion regarding de-annexation of a certain tract of land within the city of Topeka, Kansas, pursuant to K.S.A. 12504B.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Dan Warner, Planning Division Director, will lead us through this item.
Hello, Dan.
Hello, Mayor, governing body. Thanks again. So this is a little bit of a different issue than we normally face. So this item concerns the de-annexation of some right-of-way on the north side of Northwest 25th Street, a little bit west of Button Road. So the property outlined is the HME property that was annexed last year, rather large property. When we annexed that property, those two houses that are circled on that aerial were left within their own distinct voting precinct, and that's creating a voting privacy issue for those two properties. So the county election office requested that the city de-annex a portion of that right-of-way along Northwest 25th Street and place those two properties back within a larger voting precinct. The shaded area shown there, just east of those houses, is the right-of-way proposed to be vacated. Staff is supportive of that action. I will say going forward, we will include the county election office on requests for comments on when we get annexations, so they will become part of our regular requests for comments. With that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. Jay Hatfield and Andrew Howell are also here from the Shawnee County Election Office if you have questions for them.
Councilman Duncan.
I guess my only question for legal is, we had a conversation about another de-annexation issue, and there was a comment made during that time that it might be complicated. Is it not that complicated? I mean, this would literally just require a vote of de-annexation and then it's done?
I don't necessarily recall which conversation or what part might have been complicated. It probably depends on what the particular
Well, then that
de-annexation
could have been.
was.
That's why I'm getting
This
clarification
one is pretty
here.
simple
Okay.
because they've come to us, it's a right-of-way strip,
Okay.
and, I mean, we don't want everybody to know how these two
Right.
houses voted, so it seemed like one that we just needed to get done. But yes, it's just a
Okay.
simple vote.
Simple. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just don't understand it. I mean, it's a piece of land. It's not a house or voters.
There are two houses inside that split out the district, and so this is not something, we all learn something new sometimes. And so this is not something we normally check when annexation is about where district precincts are, but precincts have to be connected. So now you have two houses that are cut off from any other precinct, so they have to be their own precinct. unless they connect to another precinct. Now we know, so now we'll loop in the election office and think about things a little bit differently with annexations, but it clearly does not happen very often, if this is the first time it's come up.
Well, thank you. I knew that we could be off one or two people or one or two houses, and the land shouldn't make a difference. So
Yep,
I
this one's just
couldn't get it.
landlocked. It doesn't connect to anywhere else, so it becomes its own district.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It's interesting. Well, this is just a non-action item, so.
Yep, so
Any
tomorrow.
questions for Dan?
Sorry, next.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Andrew, good to see you. Thanks for coming down. Okay, second non-action item, Madam Clerk.
B is discussion concerning the city's intent to consider adopting a 2026 budget that would include exceeding the TMTA's revenue neutral rate, the R&R.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Division Director of Budget and Finance, will lead us through this item. And then also to Mr. Nugent from Topeka Metro is still in the audience in case you have any questions.
Thanks, City Manager. So tonight, I'm going to kind of cover the next two items in tandem. So what tonight you're doing is you are issuing a statement to the county about the possibility to exceed the revenue neutral rate, and then also you're setting a public hearing date, and then you're also setting the max possible mill rate that we could use for our budget. In this case, TMTA, they are under us as a pass-through, so we collect their property taxes and then disperse it to their organization. So what their revenue neutral rate was 3.999, and what they are proposing as a max mill levy rate is 4.2. Now that 4.2 was what their mill levy rate was last year, so they're not proposing any increase in their mill levy rate. They're just simply capturing the increment of appreciation of assessed value in properties. So that's what's being voted on. The public hearing date, which is August 26th in this building, and then a statement to exceed, and then what that max mill levy rate was, which is 4.2.
Questions for Josh? None?
Yeah.
Councilman Duncan.
So I guess my question is, are they asking us, are they making the request of us to do this, or are we doing this without a discussion or a vote or decision by their board? I know that that's not legally required, but I'm curious as
discussed
to
with
if
their
they've made
board,
this
and
request.
I discussed with their board, and they submitted the 4.2 number.
Okay, I just want to make sure we've got an official request
Yep.
from them to do so. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Josh. I think you're probably going to sit there.
Yeah.
for the next one, too. The next non-action item, Madam Clerk.
C is discussion concerning the city's intent to exceed their revenue neutral rate, R&R, for the City of Topeka's 2026 budget.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Division Director of Budget and Finance, will continue this discussion.
So same details as the last discussion item, but this is for the actual city of Topeka. So our current mill levy rate is 36.956, and then what's being put on the table is the possible max mill levy rate is an increase of 1. So that doesn't mean we're necessarily going to increase the mill levy. That just gives us, it's one of the tools we have at our disposal to raise revenue. So if we get through the budget process and we decide we want to do that, that remains as an option. But this, voting on this next week does not lock us in on anything, just to be very clear. And the resolution states that our next hearing will be, or the hearing will be the same night as the previous one, which is August 26th in this building. And then also too, and I don't know if Dan had this presentation queued up, but I think it's in your packets, that 1 mil for us is about $1.5 million of revenue. And then there is a graphic where, I'll get to it. There's a graphic showing the possible impact just for property owners. Now, this is for just residential, which is the assessment rate is 11.5%. Obviously, commercial is 25%, so those values are going to be much greater. But just to give an idea of what people would pay in property taxes based off their appraised property value. So the R&R rate, so if we kept the R&R rate for a $150,000 home, they're paying $606 to the city. Granted, we're only 25% of the property tax burden, but that's the portion that goes to us as the city. If they raise the current mill levy, that's about a $33 difference. And if we added one, each one plus or minus variance from the current mill levy rate for a $150,000 home is $17.25. So that just kind of gives you guys and the public an idea of just how the math works.
Okay, quick, Councilman Duncan.
So two things are going to happen. We're going to submit first that we are planning to exceed the revenue neutral rate. But what number are we going to be giving them?
So what's in the resolution is 37.956.
Okay.
And our current one is 36.956. So we are leaving the door open to possibly increase it by 1, but that doesn't lock us in it, doing it.
And I understand that. I will not support that. I have no desire nor will, and in every budget discussion we've had, we've talked about not raising the mill rate. So since that's my general position to start with, I can't support something that has us submitting that to the county and notifying people that we might do it, and all that confusion that can create with the public if at the end of the day we're not planning to exceed that. Now, I'm one of 10 sitting here, so that no one else has to adhere to that philosophy or concern or issue, but I want to make everyone clear that when I vote against it, that will be why, because I'm not going to vote for a budget that exceeds our current mill, so I can't support us submitting that to the county treasurer. So, thank you.
Any further comment? Okay. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it. Okay. No further business. We'll move on to public comment. We have 3 persons signed up. Thomas Dobelbauer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thomas Dobelbauer. Thomas Dobelbauer. Okay. Henry McClure.
Thank you, Your Honor. I hope you had a good executive session. I want to reiterate again to the people of Topeka how egregious it is that you go to executive session on the hotel, because it's the citizens' hotel. You should have never bought the hotel. You're not qualified to make the decisions on the hotel because you wouldn't have hired a consultant for $554,000 to consult you on the hotel. There's nothing secret about it. We're the owners. I don't know why it's not done in the light of day, which then brings you to the Go Topeka. You know, I made a core request for the minutes of the meeting for the AT&T building. I don't want to have to hire Joe Ledbetter to sue to get those minutes. We've already proven that you've got to provide those minutes. You know, this is the problem with Topeka. Everything's done up here at the level, it's in the shadows, and it doesn't have, the citizens can't get involved with our own city. And that is a shame. Now, what I was hoping for tonight, I mean, you guys could have defeated that whole thing just based on 7th Street, the traffic and the light. That was an easy no vote tonight. That was easy. Plus, I was really hoping it goes down because I've got the other spot for Maverick. I can make some money in the city just based on the scraps and the leftovers of this city. And it's a real shame. Let's go back to begging to get an extra light out at the boulevard. And all we wanted to do is emulate Wheatfield. And we begged in the beginning to get that extra light. And after the TIF agreement and the CID's done, and your consultants actually said, the consultants, Benish, it's over $3 million in fees that we pay to that group? The 7th Street thing is an automatic proof that they don't know what they're doing. I mean, they're teamed up with the hotel consultant, just, what else? I mean, the best thing to do is die and come back as a consultant to Topeka. That's it. But 18 months after the TIF and the CID is settled out at the boulevard, not only does the traffic light come into play again, you add another $7.5 million in infrastructure requirements on the developer. I think that the hotel in the city has proven a complete level of incompetence. But what the voters really don't know with AT&T and Lawrence Bay, Wolf Camera, when you start adding them all up, that really the hotel's the tip of the iceberg. And we really got to make some changes. I appreciate your time this evening.
And the next person is Rodney Harmon.
Thank you, Council. I know you're not taking no questions or statements about the last 605 Fairlawn, but this is some of the questions that Council had in reference to the traffic impact study. There's a question on here under conclusions, page 35, 7.1.5 is the proposed medium extension along Fairlawn Road south of 6th Avenue would convert the existing Amico access to right in and right out. Maverick, they self-stated that there should be no problem with competition in the area, but with that extension, it does cut off Amico with some customers that could come in and out of that location. So that's not true, what they said. In reference to, I believe, Marcus Miller, or Councilman Miller's question about peak times for additional traffic, this is in their traffic impact study. There'd be 294 additional vehicles, which 71 would be trucks, 223 would be regular passenger vehicles during the peak hours, which is the morning hours when school is being performed. Same as peak hours in the evening would be an additional 300 vehicles, 34 being trucks, 299 or 266 being passenger vehicles. In reference to Mr., I believe Duncan or Mr. Banks' question about why isn't there an exit off 6th Street? The exit off 6th Street is the hill is too steep according to the state, so they can't do that outside of there. So that puts all the traffic right there on 6th and Fairlawn, and question reference to, I believe Mr. Duncan's question about who will be paying for 7th Street. In Maverick's statement, they said that they have already talked to the city and it will be possibly paid for by them and or the city. So that should not be on the taxpayers' money. That should not be required of us. And then again, the businesses along 7th Street, how much of their land are they going to lose when we widen 7th Street? That's it.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the persons signed up for public comment. There is no executive session this evening. We'll move on to announcements. Madam Clerk.
For the July 8th meeting, we have 2 board appointments. We have 2 presentations, one for the Gage Park Improvement Authority 2024 Annual Report and the All Hands on Deck campaign to end chronic homelessness. Consent agenda, we have 1 professional services contract for Alliant Insurance Services. Action items include a public hearing and ordinance for the De-Annexation on Northwest Button Road. The next item is the resolution coming out of the Public Infrastructure Committee for the Topeka Zoo fiber relocation. We have discussion and possible action for the dangerous dog ordinance and the cruelty to animal ordinances, both coming out of the Public Health and Safety Committee. We have a resolution setting a public hearing date for LB Lots, Lawrence Bay Reinvestment Housing Investment District, the RHID, on August 12th. We also have a resolution for the Topeka TMTA revenue neutral rate and the city revenue neutral rate, 2 resolutions. And then we have 1 discussion for the dynamic core TIF district.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing for me this evening. Appreciate it.
Okay. Councilman Miller.
Thank you very much. I usually don't have a whole lot to say in announcements, but I wanted to do it today because on July 1st, normally Council Member Kale would be beating the drum about fireworks. So I want to go ahead and steal his thunder right now. I want to set a reminder to everyone because I have in the city in the last 3 or 4 days witnessed or heard fireworks being shot off in the city limits. I'm not an officer of the law, but if I was, I'd be knocking at your door. Fireworks in the city limits can only be shot off on the 3rd and 4th of July between 10 a.m. and 11 p.m. Am I correct? Okay. But if you would like to shoot that before, you can go out to the county and do so on someone's land that has given you the permission to do so from June 27th to July 4th from 8 a.m. to midnight. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Dover.
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
Just a couple quick things, Mayor. First of all, I just want to thank a couple of the NIAs. One of them had a little forum over at Valley Park. I filled in for another council person at the North-South Topeka. Those are always good conversations. I don't have a lot of I don't have any NIAs. I have NAs in my district, so I always appreciate the opportunity to go hear from different parts of the city. There were also budget meetings that the staff did these past couple of weeks. Appreciated those conversations. There were a lot of good questions from folks, not just about our budget process or why we're doing things, but just some general questions about processes that it gave staff and others an opportunity to sort of just walk through and explain, and that always goes a long way to helping everybody understand the budget, if anybody understands the budget. And then also there were some good ideas that came out of that from citizens that I know staff took note of. I want to end with a story. You never know when you do things if it's working or not, right? We hope it is. We have these grand ideas that it's going to work, and we hope that our ideas help people. And I was over at the 100th year anniversary celebration of CRC over at Stout Elementary. And as everyone knows, they now manage our property tax rebate program for low-income seniors and disabled veterans. And so they're seeing all these people come in on a regular basis who are using that rebate program. And they told me a story about a man whose wife passed away a few years ago. He got behind on taxes because she took care of all the bills. He was embarrassed to tell anybody about his situation. Finally, his children realized what was going on. They were able to help him get in both with the homestead program at the state level, help him pay a little bit of the back taxes itself. But what helped them was to close that gap was he was eligible for our tax rebate program. He qualified for it. We got him the rebate, and it helped them pay that bill to make sure that he can stay in the home that he and his wife had lived in for many decades before her passing. So that program's working. It's doing public good. I just want everyone to know that's one of those things that we've put in place. We never hear the results, and that's one of those success stories of something that we've done to help ease the burden on folks. So with that, everyone have a great 4th of July. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for sharing the story. Councilwoman Hofer.
Okay, well, I alluded that we were going to get some new animals at the zoo, so I want to let you know, we have 2 new cheetahs. They are 8-year-old brothers called Roosevelt and Leopold. They are in quarantine, but they are in their permanent location, so you can go and see both of them. Next, we got a father-son duo of Cape porcupines. Pez is the father, he's 8 years old, and Moyo is 5 years old. Moyo was born on Valentine's Day. and Moyo means heart in Swahili. And lastly, we now have 2 new baby golden lion tamarins. Their mother, father, and brother are helping carry them around the zoo. So they're a tight family, and they're kind of cordoned off, so it's hard to see them at times. You have to know what you're looking for. But we don't have the names yet. That may be a bit yet. But that's 6 new animals at the zoo in the last couple of weeks, I believe. And we will have more. Don't know when, don't know exactly what, but it's nice to see new animals at the zoo, and people need to get out and see them. And also today was the groundbreaking for the Tiger Trails and Den Academy. A lot of people showed up for that. It's a big deal. Hills presented a check for $250,000 to help fund that. They're getting, I don't know if it's completely covered, but they're getting very close, and this time next year, it should be open. So good things are happening at the zoo.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. Without going through the whole list, this last couple weeks for me, but I think a lot of us has been just kind of mind-boggling in that there have been 2 or 3 things going on each day or each evening that we had to choose amongst. And so it's that circumstance that we've wished for a long time, and it's nice to see it here. There certainly are a lot of Independence Day activities coming up too. I wanted to suggest, now that things are settling in for your term as city manager, it used to be that probably this meeting, well, probably a meeting or 2 prior, every year the fire department would do a presentation for us at the council that was then for the public as well, on what the rules were about selling fireworks, the dates and rules for selling fireworks and setting off fireworks, and kind of the approach the city was planning to take to support the community during those times. And it always was really informative and of course timely, and I'd like to suggest we start to do that again next year. Thank you.
Councilwoman Badivia-Akala.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say I spent, how many days was it? 8 or 9 days in Las Vegas, Nevada, when it was way too hot. 3% humidity, 103 at 8 o'clock at night. It was just gross. But we went there for the USA Boxing Junior Olympic Tournament and Summer Festival. Thank you to the Salvation Army for the use of their van, since there seems to still be some challenges to see where exactly Three Shields Boxing Club, which is true grassroots community organization, where they do or they do not fit. And I want to say Juju, Peyton, Tibbs, Halim, we are all so proud of you. So we had one fighter come, and he wasn't able to get in after all into it. There were 3 that went. We kind of got our butts kicked, but it wasn't because the club kids didn't deserve to be there. It's because when you get to that high a level, there were 2,500 boxers from all over the country. That almost doubled what they had last year. There were 5 rings that were competing all at once, and then 3 sparring rings where if you wanted to spar, you could do that. It was an intense, immense event, and we were even able to take the kids to the Mayweather gym, where Jeff Mayweather got to do the mitts with the kids, and they felt like they were in a movie. They felt it was all so surreal, they couldn't believe it. And, you know, the last part of that, I want to say thank you to Assistant City Manager Avery Moore for coming yesterday and spending 2 hours at the gym to actually see what was going on. I think that there is a deep understanding that was had in conversations with the kids and conversations with the coaches about what it really means to be a community organization, that is free of charge for the urban youth, for the urban core youth. And so I hope that there can be some kind of remedy, because I would venture to say there's nothing close to a club of this type in Kansas, this type, and everything that it offers and the way that it does. And additionally, I just wanted to tell folks, there's a lot of sadness out there right now with a lot of stuff that's going on in our country. I've heard from a lot of folks in my neighborhood that they don't even really feel like celebrating the 4th of July, but they're still going to get together with their families. And I would say just stay close, keep talking to each other, stay close, stay as involved as you can, and understand that we have to be in this for the long haul. And a lot of people are scared, and that's okay to be scared too. And the last thing I want to say is I was able to watch parts of the meeting when we were gone. I have some real concerns about the changes to the DEI and the ordinances. So I'm glad to know that Councilman Duncan is going to be meeting with Loud Light, and I hope to support in any way I can, because again, I have deep concerns, and I plan on meeting with some community folks in the next couple of weeks to go over this more thoroughly myself. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to inform everybody that the president is trying to eliminate the low-income application program that will hit our elderly and our low to moderate income people, mothers with children, on their utilities, and I just want us to be aware of that. That's going to be huge. I believe it was a $93 million cut. If that goes through, I did talk to the city attorney about that, and she sent me some other cuts that I will forward to you as well to see if those are of interest to you. Also, we also in our metropolitan transportation program, we have a document that we have to go through and change for the same thing, the DEI. So it's also hitting us on the transportation on that. So we'll have a special meeting. I believe it's on the 10th that was brought to us, that document. And so we'll be looking at that with our transportation partners as well. A lot of people were texting me and asking how I was voting because my chair was empty. And I just emailed them or texted them back and I said, it's technology. I know when we talked about it, I thought this is kind of crazy. We can just have a voice vote, but it was kind of neat just to sit here and just to kind of push that button after staff got me on board. And I just want to say something. I know our staff takes a hit at times, but I just want to say to Channel 4, to Brett, to Dan, they do a superb job of explaining things and just getting us on the right track when we have those problems. And I just want to thank them for that. I also want to point out that we had a constituent that called the council office, and she was having some issues with her house, and has been without water for 10 years. After talking to her, it's very evident she doesn't understand a lot. I got in touch with our code, and I got in touch with Director Davis, and I wanted to say that one of our employees, Shane Wilson, went out and personally went to check on her and handed her an application to fill out so that she can get help for the issues that she has. That's the kind of employees that we have that go above and beyond. He didn't have to, but he took the application and he went and checked on her, and I will be following through. And I just want to say we have some good city employees, and I try to thank them as much as I can when I see that extra effort, because he could have just popped it in the mail, but he didn't. So I just wanted to point that out. Last but not least, I just wanted to send condolences out to the Kinney and the Owens family. Linda Kinney passed away. Cindy, her sister, Cindy White, was at one time a city employee, and Linda Kinney was very known in our African-American churches, and she taught scriptures and KVD. She was a secretary for KVD. She was a special, beautiful, loving person, and I just wanted to send out condolences to them. And also, after she got through, she worked for the state, and when she got through, she went to work for the rescue mission, and I believe she was there for 10 years. And she just loved it. She loved it because that's who she was. She just loved people. She took care of them, and she was very kind. And so if we could keep our prayers, send prayers to her family and loved ones, that would be great. And last, you know, you hear this all the time, check on your neighbors, check on your friends, check on your family members. And I tell you what, when it hits home and something happens, it hits home. So yeah, we need to continue to do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a couple of comments. First off, a week ago this past Saturday, I had the opportunity and privilege to read the mayor's proclamation. I didn't pretend to be the mayor. I thought about it. I was joined by Councilman Duncan, and I was really, really proud to be there and have an opportunity to watch our police chief interact with people that he did not know. I thought, you know, when I first saw him at the event, I thought, well, he's probably going to want me to introduce him to some of the constituents. Well, I introduced him to one person, and I stopped to talk, and he was all over the park. Some of the guys, the vendors, were asking where you were. I said, well, he told me any food he got that I could have it. It was, yeah, oh yeah. It was a really good event, and I appreciated the opportunity to read the proclamation and certainly have an opportunity to interact and see some of the members of our governing body at that event. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm glad you went, and I'm glad you read it. That's always a good event. Yeah, a lot of fun. Deputy Mayor? You still hanging in there? He's not? Okay.
You took his fireworks.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I don't have anything to offer this evening. I appreciate it. There being no further business come before this body, the meeting is adjourned.